And right now, a Target 11 investigation. 400 of the most dangerous sex offenders live right in Pennsylvania.
They are required by Megan's Law to register with the state for the rest of their lives. They may be living right next to you. Target 11 investigator Rick Earl has found places in our area where the most violent offenders are concentrated. Rick?
Peggy, David, we track sex offenders because it's one of the topics we get a lot of calls about. Now this time I zeroed in on the worst of the worst, finding 14 violent sex offenders living right in Allegheny County, and several of them in one community. You live right next door to one of them.
Yes, I do. And I don't like it at all.
Tracy Harris lives in East Pittsburgh, right next door to a sexually violent predator.
We haven't had any problems at all, no. It's just the fact that I know that they live in this neighborhood. It makes me very nervous.
East Pittsburgh is home to 3 sexually violent predators, more than any other community in Allegheny County.
It's kind of scary because I have 5 children. I have 2 daughters, and I just moved to the area about 3 months ago, and I really had no idea.
2 of them live in this apartment building, along with a dozen other less violent sexual offenders. They began moving into this community about 2 years ago.
So they're being paroled from prison, and the word is getting out through agencies that this is somewhere that you can go that meets the requirements for parole.
East Pittsburgh Police Chief Lori Payne is responsible for notifying residents, businesses, and schools when a violent sex offender moves in, and she keeps close tabs on them. Fortunately for her, the apartment building where many of them live is within eyesight of the police department. How frequently do you guys check up on them?
I'd say once a week at least, just because they're here and our officers are aware of who all of them are.
So where do the violent sexual predators live? In Allegheny County, there are 14, 4 in the city of Pittsburgh, the East Hills, Squirrel Hill, Lawrenceville, and the North Side. 3 we already mentioned in East Pittsburgh, and 1 each in Aspinwall, Glassport, Imperial, Monroeville, McKeesport, West Mifflin, and Wilmerding. Beaver and Butler counties each have 7, Washington 4, Fayette 1, and Westmoreland 6. Among them, this man, Robert Carl Barger, who listed his address as homeless and living under a bridge in Latrobe.
Anybody down there?
We went to that bridge and there was no sign of anyone.
I thought if you were a sexual offender, you had to give an address.
You would think, yeah, but apparently not.
Oh my goodness.
But the courts have ruled homeless Megan's Law offenders don't have to give an address, and that makes it more difficult for police to keep track of them. Investigators tell me Barger has moved many times, and police say they have no idea where he's really living. Neighbors and business owners here showed me a flyer police recently handed out, alerting them about him.
He would never give an address, they said. That's why they can't find him. He just gives an odd address, which is under the bridge. Up the road here, they told us. So everyone knows where that bridge is, but I don't think he's living there, as you noticed.
Now, Barger, like all sexually violent predators, is required to check in with state police 4 times a year. Their information and photos then posted on the Megan's Law website. Police say Barger has complied with the reporting requirements. Now, sex offenders who don't will be tracked down and arrested. Now, if you want more information on sex offenders living in your neighborhood, log on to our website, and we have a link to the Megan's Law website. Reporting live, Rick Earl, Channel 11 News.
We told you a few months ago about a new way to track sex offenders that's being tested here in our area. We wanted to find out if the GPS trackers are actually doing the job. Target 11 investigator Rick Earl just checked on how the test program is working. He joins us live now with an update. Rick?
Yeah, David, it was an experimental program to track registered sex offenders. I've learned that the final report evaluating this entire project is due out later this week. But tonight, we have the inside track on the new GPS tracking program. After being outfitted with a GPS tracking device like this, a registered sex offender told authorities he'd be going straight home. Instead, they tracked him to a local mall. Another sex offender in this pilot program cut off his bracelet the very first day and took off.
Now, why would he do that? Because he's going to reoffend.
Police tracked him down, but they say the 44 other sex offenders involved in the 2-month experiment played by the rules.
For the time that we had the bracelets on, at least they were smart enough. They didn't commit any more crimes. We couldn't put them on any crime scenes.
While Allegheny County is now testing GPS, Target 11 discovered some counties in our area are already using it.
You can see all these green little dots. That's where that person has been.
In Westmoreland, probation officers showed us how they're tracking 2 defendants right now. One a drug case, the other domestic violence.
This is the active one-piece GPS equipment.
The defendant wears an ankle bracelet. It transmits a signal to a satellite, pinpointing the defendant's exact location. Using a laptop or a smartphone, probation officers know exactly where he is at all times.
It's within feet of where they're they currently are, their location.
That's a big advantage for you guys.
Yes, it is.
Probation officers showed us the green dots on the computer screen. They indicate the exact path the defendant took on this morning. Click on the dot for the time and location. And there's more. Probation officers can set up exclusion zones around a victim's home.
And that red geographic area right here is the exclusion zone.
If the defendant goes into that area, an alert immediately comes in.
And if the defendant would go in that exclusion zone, we would have an officer get paged immediately.
We have a number of Megan's Law violators that actually reside here. And yes, I mean, this could certainly provide an extra level of comfort, if you will.
Robert Sifrelak is the police chief in McKees Rocks. 55 registered sex offenders live in his community. 3 of them participated in the tracking program. It's a program he and others would like to see permanently.
When you made the choice to commit the crime, you kind of gave up your freedoms. So if that means you have to wear an electronic monitoring device to know where you're at, then so be it.
We put the bracelets on these guys, it works.
Back in Allegheny, DA Zappala says he's sold on GPS and wants to use it not only for sex offenders, but for violent offenders released on bail.
It has reduced crime in terms of peace of mind for somebody who has children, especially young children. It's huge.
And DA Zappala says GPS tracking is cheaper than keeping an inmate in jail. It's $75 a day for incarceration compared to about $20 a day for GPS tracking. And some of the tracking costs will also be passed on to the defendant. DA Zappala says he hopes to make this permanent very soon. For now, reporting live, Rick Earl, Channel 11 News.
A Target 11 investigation now into registered sex offenders on the run. Convicted sex offenders are required to register at least once a year, but what happens when they don't check in or lie on the registration? Target 11 investigator Rick Earl found one local department that's sending a strong message to sex offenders who don't tell the truth. Rick?
Well, David, oftentimes a sex offender will register an address with Megan's Law, but they won't stay at that address. So then it's up to local police departments to check up on them. Now, I went along with one department where it's a top priority.
We got Daniel Carter. We're going to check on him. And
Pittsburgh police officer Mike Veith is on the move.
My job is to check on individuals.
Making sure registered sex offenders are living and working where they say they are.
The public deserves to have that good feeling to know that police officers are actually out there looking for these offenders.
Several years ago, while doing random checks, Veith discovered half of the registered sex offenders in Pittsburgh lied about where they lived or worked.
It's 264, and I believe that might be up that way.
On this day, we hit the streets with him on the south side to an apartment on Carson Street.
Daniel, Pittsburgh Police.
There's no answer, but the landlord confirms Daniel Carter is living here. That's not good enough for Veith. He leaves his calling card.
He has to go down and re-register. I need an apartment number.
Veith tracks about 400 registered sex offenders who live in the city. He does random, unannounced checks.
I may do two times in a month. I may hit just to make sure. I may knock on your door twice.
If they're not living or working at the registered address, Veith gets a warrant for their arrest.
Hey man, Detective Veith, Pittsburgh Police, how you doing?
Veith's next stop, an address on the south side listed by offender James Marasco. Turns out it's the Mercy Behavioral Center. Veith couldn't get much info inside, but he has a feeling.
Tells me that he's probably not in this facility.
There's obviously a red flag here, though.
Absolutely. So this guy goes on top of the list.
And suddenly, Marasco is off the chart and on the trackdown list. Several days later, Veith found him living in Homestead. But Veith still has outstanding warrants for these sex offenders. Tommy Hatcher, released from the Allegheny County Jail and never registered. William Wright, last known address South Millvale Avenue in Friendship. And Kenneth Ray Henderson, who listed a relative's address when he was released from the county jail, but wasn't living there when police checked on him. Veith says cases like these are now rare in the city. Lately, he's seen a 95% compliance rate. What do you attribute that to?
I think diligent searching. We've probably have about 175 arrests in a 3-year period.
Wow.
And
so the message is clearly getting out there.
I believe so. I believe that it is.
Now, police believe some of the sex offenders we highlighted may be living out of state, but arrest warrants are still active here in Pittsburgh just in case they return. Now, police also tell me they get a lot of tips from the public about sex offenders not living at their registered addresses. If you want to check up on the sex offenders in your area, we have a link on our website to the Megan's Law website where you can find all of that information. Reporting live, Rick Earl, Channel 11 News.